Hello and welcome to the Cameo Show. I'm your host, Cameo, and today we are talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, the constant balancing act of being a woman, period. That's the end of that sentence. But more specifically of being a mom and an entrepreneur, a mompreneur, if you will. Ba-dum-tsh. If you're listening to this, chances are you know exactly how it feels to try to juggle it all. Your family, your marriage, your career, activities, packing lunches, doing laundry, on and on and on, and somewhere in between, in the middle of that, your own personal goals. Whew, I'm exhausted already. Today, I want to share my own experiences, the good, the messy, the downright chaotic, which feels like it's most of the time, and how I've managed to run a business while raising my kids without sacrificing one for the other. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've got it all figured out because I don't, but I can share some strategies that have helped me not just survive, but also thrive in both roles. So whether you're a seasoned mompreneur, you're just starting your journey, maybe you have a side hustle, maybe you're just dreaming about doing something entrepreneurial in addition to being a mom or in addition to your career, I hope that this episode gives you some encouragement and a few actionable tips to take along the way. So let's dive in. Let's first talk about being a mompreneur, or just a career woman and a mom at the same time. There is this myth that we can balance it all perfectly. We can show up to work and nail it, whether we're at our job outside of the home or whether we're running our own business, that we can show up and just be on and ready to take on the world. And then that we can come home and be nurturing and loving and full of energy to play with our kids, to help them with homework, to make dinner. But let me tell you what, it is freaking hard. Running a business or having a career of your own is a full-time job, obviously. Being a mom is a full-time job, obviously. Raising a family is not for the faint of heart. It is not something that you can clock in and clock out of. It isn't something that you can half-ass. I mean, I guess you can, but if you're listening to this, I'm assuming that you're here because you don't want to half-ass anything. But when you put together this idea of work-life balance, it's a joke, right? A guest on our show, maybe a year ago, her name is Spring. She mentioned that instead of using the word balance, she uses the word harmony. And I thought that was a very good use of language and the fact that our words matter, how we present that to ourselves. Because if you're trying to find balance between these two things, it ain't never gonna happen. But if you're trying to find harmony, how you can make them work together, how you can give and take in a way that is beneficial for both your business and your family, that's a more realistic, less neurotic way to approach managing a career and a family. Because finding harmony is kind of like a game of tug of war, right? There are days when I'm crushing it in the business world. So whether that means Braun Mortgage Group, which is my husband and I's mortgage company, or Braun Media Group, which is our media company where we do our podcast, where we publish our books, where we produce music. Some days I am on it. I am on fire. I am like always checklist oriented, and some days I can cross off the whole damn list because I am just killing it. And I feel confident and tenacious, and I am ready to go after whatever goal, whatever challenge is set in front of me. Nailing it. But there are days when I feel guilty because I'm nailing it at work and then I miss something at home. Our kids are teenagers now, so they try to communicate with me during the day through text messages or a phone call. And if I'm not as present in interacting with them during the day because I am like full on work mode, I feel guilty. And then there are days when I'm killing it as a mom. I'm like out in the pool or at the beach playing. We're going on an adventure, or we're playing some type of video game even. We're having family movie night. We're in the kitchen making family dinner. I'm baking, like making homemade mom treats, nailing it as a mom. But maybe there are some things in my business world that are suffering, right? Because I can't give them my attention. Even on the weekend, the work that I do doesn't stop for my professional career or careers. And many of you have that same situation happening, whether you work for someone else or work for yourself, especially. Work is kind of now like trickling into the evening hours and weekend hours for many of us. And so sometimes when I'm nailing it as a mom, that means I'm missing the phone call or I can't respond to the email as quickly. And just know if you feel this way, you are definitely not alone. When we first started Braun Mortgage Group, for example, the kids were much younger. We've been doing this forever. And Braun Mortgage Group, while it's 6 years old, we really have been building that business since we moved from Ohio to Florida about 10 years ago. So the kids were not even teenagers yet when we started building Braun Mortgage Group. And I felt like it was a constant race against the clock. They needed me a ton more back then. And I remember there would be days when I would be on the phone, especially during summer break or, if they were home from school for whatever reason, where I still needed to get work done. And I would be on the phone and they would come to me like needing something. And I would give them the whole, put my finger up to my mouth and purse my lips like, don't you say a word, I'm on the phone kind of look. And I still, to this day, 10 years later, sometimes beat myself up over that. I'm so grateful that they were so patient and understanding, but I also, as a mom, can't help but wonder like, oh man, how did that make them feel? I was so concerned with getting the job done or answering the phone call or being present and available for my customer, whatever that need was in that moment, that I completely neglected maybe what they needed. And often it was, can I have a peanut butter sandwich? Or can you get me a glass of water? Or Ben won't stop knocking on my door, whatever he was doing to Faith at the time, like conflict resolution, referee time. But it's hard to not beat yourself up over those moments. And spoiler alert, even though my kids are older now, sometimes I still feel that way. Like there is a lot of pressure to do it all. And time is undefeated. These kids are not getting any younger. The amount of time that I get to spend with them is less and less and less as they get older. But one of the best things that I have done for myself is to let go of that perfect image. Now, like I just said, sometimes it still creeps in on me. I can't help it. It's human nature to look back at times and think, oh, what would I have done differently? Or how did I make them feel? That's awareness. But to let go of that perfect image and just know that I was doing the best I could with what I had at the time. And that's very freeing. I was trying to build a business, maintain relationships with customers, be available when they needed me. At the same time, I was trying to run a family, build up my kids, maintain my relationship with them, be there when they needed me. And sometimes everybody needed me all at once and I'm only one person. Now, if you feel this way, I know it sounds really easy and also very corny at the same time. Okay, give yourself some grace and give yourself the benefit of the doubt and let go of that perfect image. But let me tell you something. If you don't, no one else is going to do that for you. You have to remind yourself constantly that you're doing the best you can. Whether you're at work away from home or you are running your own business or starting your own side hustle, someone is always going to need you. And no one's going to tell you you're doing an amazing job. You're lucky if you have people in your corner who are constantly reminding you of that. But you have to be your own best friend and do that often. In addition to everyone needing you all at the same time, one of the biggest challenges that you face as a working mom or as a mompreneur is time management. And one of the things that I have clung to tightly is what I call my own priority pyramid. What are the things that are most important to me if I am faced with choosing between the two? And am I willing, this is the kicker, am I willing to accept the consequences, the fallout of making that choice? There's a cost to everything. Something is going to take the back seat. Something is going to potentially suffer. And that's going to look very different from person to person, and that's fine. But what I am asking you to do and telling you that worked very well for me was get very clear for yourself what that looks like. There are things that are important, and there are things that are urgent. There are things that are both, and there are things that are neither. And if you can't differentiate what those are for yourself, then you're going to be yanked around by anyone and everyone's important and urgent lists. Now, you have to be ruthless in this pursuit. Ask yourself daily, what do I absolutely need to do today to move my business forward? And what are the things that are absolutely most important for my family today? And if I'm asked or forced to make a choice between the two, do I know how to make that choice for myself? It's tough. It doesn't feel fair, but it is necessary. And if you know what your priority pyramid is, if you're able to distinguish important and urgent, both or neither, and make your decisions based on that, you will feel so much better at the end of every day because you will know. It will be knowing in your body. Trust me. A couple of other things when it comes to time management and priorities is that I've had to learn how to batch my tasks, especially as we've grown our business, added a new business, and as our kids have gotten older. I've had to use time blocks, and I know that again sounds very corny and cliche and very instruction manual, but I've had to learn to befriend time blocks and say, okay, in the mornings I do Braun Mortgage Group work first and foremost, right out of the gate. As soon as the kids have breakfast and they're out for the day, Braun Mortgage Group gets my attention. Later in the afternoon is when I do Braun Media Group. And if Braun Mortgage Group needs me in the afternoon, of course I'm flexible because the type of business that I'm in is not something I can just set aside and wait till tomorrow. Sometimes there are urgent things that pop up, but I know that in these time blocks, I'm dedicated to whatever tasks I need to do for those particular businesses. And then when it's time to be a mom again, I try to 100% give my focus to being a mom. Now, does that mean that the phone doesn't ring and I don't have to take a phone call? No, it doesn't. Sometimes I do. But once that phone call is over, I'm right back into mom mode and batch those tasks. I'm not doing laundry while I'm working at home during the day. I am not sending emails while I'm cooking dinner at night. I've learned to decide how to prioritize my day while I'm working, and then even more granular what I do within that time. So for example, Tuesdays are podcast days. So I do my Braun Mortgage Group work in the morning, and then when I have that complete or at a stopping point, I can move on to Braun Media Group and I can record podcasts, I can interview guests, and I know that that day is dedicated to podcasts, editing, whatever the case may be. So whatever that looks like for you. Now, every day is different. There are days literally at this time in our life where we make 4 or 5 trips to the school a day. We take Ben to school, we drive home. We go pick Ben up from school, we drive home. We take Ben back to band, we drive home. We go pick Ben up from band, we drive home. And anything else that we have to do in between. Now, I realize I'm fortunate to do that, and I remind myself of that regularly, that I get to do this because I could be traveling or I could be doing something that does not allow me to be present to make this choice to be my kid's taxi driver. But that eats up a ton of time. And so I have to, again, batch my tasks around that schedule as well. And I know that many of you struggle with figuring out how you're going to get everything done in addition to work and momming, because you have other priorities and other relationships, and your kids have sports, and this one's in a different state, and this one has practice when this one has practice. I get it. I know it's a lot. You will thank yourself if you can get very good at batching and then being flexible, because things will change, schedules will change, needs will change. So being able to pivot and rearrange whatever that batching is as the duty calls is also very important. The other thing that's really helpful in prioritizing and time management is delegating. You don't have to do everything. I thought I had to do everything for a really, really, really long time, and I still like to do much of everything that I do. It's just who I am. But whether it's at work, in your business, or at home, delegating tasks is a game changer. I've heard people say over and over and over again, if you can find someone to do the job for you, whether you hire them or ask them for help, 80% as well as you would, it's winning. And that's hard for me because I'm the type of person that's like, I'll just do it myself. I know it's done right if I do it myself, but 80% or better, as well as I would, has also led me to find people who can do it better than I can, faster than I can, and it's well worth it because it clears up my time so that I can stay glued to my priority pyramid. Even if it means hiring someone, even if it means paying for a service, it just depends on what that looks like for you with regard to there's a cost to everything. And it's no secret if you've listened to this podcast or you know Greg and I that we delegate the house chores. Of course, the kids help when they can, but they're very busy, and we honor that. We respect that. And instead of expecting them, for us in our household, to come home after being gone sometimes 10, 12 hours and do more chores, we just choose not to do that strictly. But in our household, where I was going with this is that Greg and I, we have split the jobs up very well. And of course, we help each other out when one of us needs a little extra help. But in our house, he does the dishes and I do the laundry. And it eliminates any guilt and argument and shame and resentment around those two tasks. If he helps me do the laundry sometimes, it's a bonus. If I unload the dishwasher or do the dishes and clean up the kitchen, it's a bonus. But there's no walking by going, I did that last time, when's he gonna do it? We've delegated, we've owned certain jobs, and it has made life easier for both of us in a multitude of ways. There's actually a podcast episode on exactly that. I think it's called Laundry, Dishes, Toothpaste, Oh My, something like that. It's way back in the early episodes. Check it out. It's short, it's funny, and it actually is extremely helpful in giving you ideas for how to delegate. The key here, whether you're talking about prioritizing, task batching, delegating, hiring, it doesn't matter, is boundaries. Create a schedule that works for you, stick to it. There will always be something or someone that needs to tug at you, who needs you, who wants you, and demands your attention. But prioritizing what's most important each day and clinging to that helps keep the overwhelm at bay. The next thing I want to cover, and I think it's critical, is that we've got to stop with the perfectionism. I've touched on the fact that we want to do it all, that we feel the need to do it all, that sometimes we have to accept that someone might do it 80% as well as we would. All of those things. But let me tell you something else. We have to stop comparing ourselves to what Shelly down the street can do and what Carol the soccer mom can do. It doesn't matter. Everyone's thresholds are different. Everyone's responsibilities for their own business, for their own career, for their own families is different. What looks right or perfect for one person is not the same for the next person or the next person or the next person. We put an insane amount of pressure on ourselves to be able to do it all, do it right, do it the best, show up in every role, fully in control of ourselves. And quite frankly, it's bullshit. We don't have to. If you expect yourself to do that, knock it off. If you expect the mom next door to do that, stop being that way. It's just not fair. So stop comparing. There are going to be days when the house is a mess, when you forgot to send the email, when you forgot to send something with Johnny to school, and when dinner is cereal. And guess what? That's okay. And if anybody thinks it isn't, it's not their business. As long as you're not harming anyone or putting anyone in a dangerous situation, this is just life and it's perfectly fine. So be nice to yourself, be nice to your neighbor, be nice to the moms that you see. We all are trying to do the best we can. And the last piece of the puzzle here in balancing running or building your own business with running and nurturing your own family is self-care. And don't at me or hate me. I know, self-care. I'm tired of hearing it too, but it's so important. It's so necessary. And self-care looks different for everyone too. Self-care might be the bubble bath and the face mask and the glass of champagne. But it also might be putting on your tennis shoes and going for a walk. It might be sitting on a yoga mat and meditating. It might be, in my case, wrapping up my hands and going and beating the shit out of a Muay Thai bag. To each their own. But self-care is so important because if you aren't taking care of yourself first and you're taking care of everyone and everything else first, you get left behind. And when you get left behind, honestly, you're not giving anyone the best of you and you're bubbling with resentment. Because it's freaking exhausting and it's not fair, and eventually that catches up to you. It's not selfish. It's selfless to make sure that you're taken care of. It's self-interested, and we've talked about that a lot on this show. I talk about it a lot in my upcoming book, The Reset Button. If you're not taking care of yourself first, everything else is going to suffer. So you have to take the time. Do what it means to you. Forget what it means to anyone else. Find small ways to recharge. Even if it's just sitting in your car for 2 extra minutes before you walk into the chaos of your home to find a little moment of peace to reset yourself. Trust me, it makes a world of difference. So what's the takeaway from all of this? Being an entrepreneur, having a side hustle, and being a mom, or even if you're not a mom, being a wife, being a present person in someone else's life, it's no easy feat, but it is possible. It is possible to start and run and build and grow a successful business and be connected to your family at the same time. You just have to give yourself permission to be imperfect, to cling to your priority pyramid, to stop with judgment and comparison, to lean on your support system, to ask for help. It's not weak, it's a superpower. And to treat yourself right first. If one of those pieces is missing, it's going to be difficult. But if you can get all of those in alignment, if you can make all of those work and you make them work, you make it so, no negotiating any of those things, accept them. You'll create a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling in both your work and family life, and find harmony, maybe not balance, but definitely harmony every single day. And if today wasn't great, there's always tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope this episode brought you some encouragement, some practical tips, maybe just even a big sigh of feeling seen and not crazy for feeling overwhelmed in the way that you might feel trying to manage and juggle all of this. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to drop me a message on Instagram at Cameo Elise Braun, or go to my website, cameoelisebraun.com, and send me an email from there. Sign up for my free newsletter, The Weekly Reset, which goes out every Friday. And don't forget to follow and rate the show if this was helpful to you. Those things are helpful to us and also to the community around us. And if you know a mom who's struggling with balancing career and family, or building her own business or side hustle and family, the mompreneur life, send this to her. Make sure she knows that she's seen and that she's not alone either. She might pick up something helpful, and you'd be to thank for that. I appreciate you all so much. Until next time.